Meeting can be viewed at https://bit.ly/3EQT60 or by phone at 312-626-6799 or 301-715-8592. Meeting webinar ID 932-5822-1324. Phone/voice passcode 7744-529-015. Item number 1, OR-2021-0012. Appropriating ordinance number 1, making appropriations for operating City of New Haven departments for fiscal year July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. Item number 2, OR-2021-0011. Tax levy and revenue appropriating ordinance number 2. An ordinance making a tax levy and, tax levy and revenue appropriating ordinance number 2. An ordinance making tax levy and revenue assumptions for fiscal year July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. Number 3, OR-2021-0010, appropriating ordinance number 3, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds, fiscal year 2022. Number 4, OR-2021-0007, appropriating ordinance number 4, an ordinance authorizing issuance of general obligation tax anticipation notes and or general obligation grant anticipation notes, fiscal year 2022. Number 5, OR-2021-0006, an ordinance amendment to section 17-201 of the General Code of Ordinances authorizing additions and changes to permits, license, and user fees for fiscal year 2021-2022. Number 6, LM-2021-0158, East Rock Park Communications Tower Enterprise Fund. Number 7, LM-2021-0159, Lighthouse Park Carousel Enterprise Fund budget. Number 8, LM-2021-0164, Alling Memorial Golf Course Enterprise Fund budget. Number 9, LM-2021-0165, Ralph Walker Skating Rink Enterprise Fund budget. Number 10, LM-2021-0117, ordinance imposing a levy as municipal tax levy in the Grand Avenue Special Services District, fiscal year 2021-2022. Page 2 of the notice. Number 11, LM-2021-0118, order imposing a levy as municipal tax levy in the Chapel West Special Services District, fiscal year 2021-2022. And number 12, LM-2021-0125, order imposing a levy as municipal tax levy in the Town Green Special Services District, fiscal year 2021-2022. And number 13, LM-2021-0126, order imposing a levy as municipal tax levy in the Whaley Avenue Special Services District, fiscal year 2021-2022. These items are filed with the city clerk and may be inspected at room 202, 200 Orange Street, New Haven. Per order, Honorable Yvette Hamilton, Chair, and Test Honorable Michael Smart, City Clerk. If you need a disability-related accommodation, please call 3 business days in advance, 203-946 8122-VOICE or 203-946-8582 TTY. This meeting can be viewed at https://bit.ly/3EQT60J or by phone at 312-626-6799 or 301-715-8592. Meeting webinar ID 93258222134. Phone/voice passcode 7744529015. Good evening to everyone that has joined us this evening. We'll start with the committee's introduction. Adam Marchand.
Here.
Ernie Santiago. Salvatore Nicola.
Here.
Jeanette Morrison.
Here.
Taisha Walker-Myers.
Here.
Anna Festa.
Here.
Richard Furlow.
Here.
Evelyn Rodriguez.
Here.
Ron Hurt. Charles Decker.
Here.
I would like to also recognize the alders that have joined us. I see alders Roth, Douglas, Singh, Winters, Alder Santana, Alder Sabin. Have I missed anyone? Alder, any other alders that are present with us this evening? Okay, welcome to everyone, committee and colleagues this evening. We will start with our procedures from Vice Chair Marchand, and we'll go right into our meeting. Alder Marchand, will you start us off, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Obviously, this is an important night. This is the evening when the Finance Committee deliberates on the proposed budget and votes on amendments and sends an amended version to the full board. Madam Chair, I see that Alder Carmen Rodriguez has also joined us.
Okay, yeah.
There was a long list on our agenda, 13 items. So we're going to proceed as quickly as we can through them, and this is how we plan to do it. After my announcements, we will have Michael Gormany, our Director of Management and Budget, make a presentation about a requested technical amendment. These are changes and corrections that the administration has found in what would like us to incorporate into a technical amendment. So we've asked him to start our meeting with a brief presentation of that information. After his presentation, committee will have an opportunity to ask questions to clarify the information. And when that's over, then we'll move into deliberations. Our intention this evening is to kind of work from the bottom of the list up. And by that, we mean we will move the items in groups of three, or in three groups rather. The first group are items 10 through 13, the special service districts, which we'll move together. The second group will be the enterprise funds, items 6 through 9, which we'll move together. And we'll vote on those two groups of things. And then the last group we'll do is my items 1 through 5. I double checked with Al Lucas, our parliamentarian, and we are able to move them all together. And so we will move items 1 through 5, which will give us the opportunity to deliberate on the budget in a flexible way, dealing with expenses and revenues all in one go. And so that's how we plan to proceed this evening. Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you, Alder Marchand. And Alder Morrison, I see, has joined us, right?
She has, and she said yes when you called her name.
Oh, alrighty. We will start with Mr. Gormany. Okay, Mr. Gormany, are you with us? And you have the floor.
Madam Chair, we should recognize our colleague, Alder Ernie Santiago, member of the committee, has joined us.
Excellent. I didn't see him. Good evening, Alder Ernie Santiago. Thank you for joining us. Excellent.
Good evening, everybody. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chair Hamilton and Vice Chair Marchand. Great to see everyone again. I am not sure. I will say my name and address for the record.
Oh, yes, please.
All right.
I
Michael
know, we
Gormley.
forget the formalities, huh?
Yeah.
My bad.
Michael Gormley, 45 Jefferson Road, Branford, Connecticut.
Thank you so much.
So again, as Vice Chair Marchand mentioned, we're here during another budget process for the city of New Haven. As in past years, when the mayor submits a proposed budget in March, sometimes there are amendments that need to be made on the city side, whether it's position changes, position additions, whatever the case is, or non-personnel changes, sometimes to adjust the budgets or add back programs within the budget. And we do that based on, a lot of times based on the budgetary feedback that we get during the budget presentations from the alders, and also just any general changes that may make the city more efficient, or just overall general changes. So I will bring on my screen. The committee should have received a Word document and an Excel document to sort of follow along. I am going to use the Excel document, but the Word document is numbered in the same order as the Excel document, which really has a lot of the explanations that I'm going to explain at the moment. All right, so I will go through this. It's not a large document, and again, the city's technical amendment was based on the budgetary presentations that department heads and I gave, and some of the feedback during those budget presentations that were received by the alders. A lot of these items, especially on the personnel side, were mentioned during the budget presentation, so I can quickly go through those. This technical amendment consists of two sections. One is general fund, which we'll go through, which has personnel changes, non-personnel changes, and a small revenue change. The second section of the city's technical amendment is information only. We want to be transparent and just show on the special fund side some of the changes that will be in the Board of Alder approved budget. So going through this technical amendment, and I will reference things by the line number of what I'm talking about so everyone can follow along. Again, that Word document that we have is also in the same order as this Excel document. So lines 1 and 2 are part-time positions for parking enforcement officers. Those are the positions that are enforced the after 5 o'clock hours for the city. Again, during the budget presentation, I did mention that those were accidentally omitted from the Forward Together budget. So we are actually just adding those positions back into the Forward Together budget. Lines number 3 through 5, so 3, 4, and 5, are personnel changes that were made basically after the mayor's proposed budget happened. So those were individuals that were hired or will be hired. But again, as you can see, based on the proposed budget and based on the hiring, they came in higher than salary. Now, the one I will mention is line number 5, which is the Deputy Director of Health. We did have that budgeted at $90,000. That was omitted as an increase during the mayor's proposed budget. So part of it is going to be the hire plus fixing that budget. The Deputy Director is basically the second in command. So for hierarchy purposes and based on salaries, that salary should be higher than the 90,000 because we have program directors in the health department who make more than that particular amount of 90,000. So the highest program director is actually mentioned above the nursing director, which is at 106,000. So again, that's why you sort of see that bump up in the Deputy Director of Health. Items 6, 7, and 8 are part-time positions in the finance department. Those are to create more efficiencies as we go through more audits with the city. We do need a part-time accounts payable auditor. Again, we have one of those positions that already exist in analyzing the type of audits on expenditures and things we need. We don't actually need a full-time position. We can make do with a part-time position. The tax office is the same thing. That is really for customer service and efficiency needs within the tax office. So that will be one of the frontline part-time workers that assist the customers when they come in to pay their taxes or to assist on the phone. The part-time data control clerk is as we make more efficiencies in finance. In our purchasing and workers' comp, which we talked about prior, we need a part-time position to do data entry and to help with procurement. The last position that we have is in OBIE, as we've talked about development and in other areas within building inspection and enforcement, especially with a lot of the projects that we have coming up in the next few years. In working with Jim Tercio, we would need another building examiner. Now, that building examiner, as we go through the technical amendment when we get to the last portion, will actually help bring in revenue to offset that actual expenditure costs. But that position will help review plans and permits, and we will be able to efficiently get those permits out, which, as you know, permits is one of our largest local revenues for the city. So overall, we have on the personnel side, $227,919 of changes in personnel. To offset that cost, we have a number of changes to various non-personnel line items. So again, in the budget presentation, we mentioned stormwater and bringing that back to a status quo budget for fiscal from the fiscal year 1920 to 2021 number. We did mention that we would need to also bring back a status quo budget for overtime in human resources, human resources, and that overtime deals with public safety testing. As they testified, we will be ramping up on public safety, which is police and fire testing, going into next fiscal year. One of the items that we also looked at was the UNH co-op program, and looking to partner with UNH. That was omitted in the Forward Together budget, and that is a great program, especially working in the public safety sector and exposing UNH students to that particular field. So we are bringing that back at the FY 2019-20 budget of $50,000. We did have a small contractual increase in Parks and Public Works, which is line 13. So line 14 and 17 go together. We did reduce other contractual services and registration and dues to pay for those part-time positions that were mentioned above for finance. So the part-time auditor, collection service rep, and data clerk, those position salaries are offset by line number 14 and 17, mostly in the budget, in the non-personnel section. The other larger increases, line 15, is we were able to adjust the attrition in police. Again, these numbers have really been in the millions of dollars as far as this current fiscal year's budget attrition is $1.4 million. So we were still, even with a small increase, able to lower that number from fiscal year to fiscal year. But we are increasing it to pay for some of the changes in the personnel and non-personnel section. The same methodology is applied to line 16. This is the overall city attrition number that we have in the city budget. And this is based on non-public safety vacancies and what the city believes it will save during the fiscal year. Line 18 is our IT maintenance agreement. We are increasing that by 100,000, and that is really just a true-up cost. That is our maintenance and software agreements that we pay every year in the city budget. So that's our financial system, our firewalls, just our overall software system and support for the city. Again, that's really truing up that cost and increasing it for next fiscal year. The same thing with line 19, which is the line that we use for our phones, our cell phones, our copiers, and our rentals. Every few years, we go through a true-up cost, and it's not always in time for when the mayor submits the budget. So if you look at the past expenditures, we spent a little bit more than that $700,000. So we're really just truing up that budget line. Line number 20, which is for elderly services. There's a small match for a special fund position that they have. So not to disrupt the services and the items that elderly services pay, we did increase their other contractual services amount by $15,000 for that small match in personnel on the special fund side. So instead of reducing something like cleaning services or whatever else out of other contractual services, we decided to include it in the technical amendment and be offset by some of these other changes. Ttmp Uniforms. This is really a contractual item that was submitted to me by Transportation, Traffic, and Parking. Some of the new safety equipment that was acquired recently for the signal crew. This is the cleaning and maintenance of that equipment. So because we just purchased the equipment, there's going to be some additional costs that would come out of the general fund uniform line for as part of their equipment and uniforms. Lines 22 and 23 go together. That was actually, and I will say it, that is actually an error on my part. The additional $100,000 that we talked about as far as during the budget presentations with Corp Counsel for additional legal services, investigations, and other stuff for labor relations was actually supposed to be budgeted in the legal service line and not the other contractual line. So those two offset each other basically. You'll see 100,000 decrease and 100,000 increase. We're just switching the accounts. Line number 24 is the building permit. And again, I mentioned that sort of goes hand in hand with that position. Again, I mentioned we were able to do a modest increase in revenue for building permits after a conversation with Jim Tercio, because that building plan examiner will help expedite the process and the number of projects that we can review for building permits. So I know that was a lot, but overall on the general fund side, you can see the technical amendment comes to zero. The overall change really is because we're increasing revenue by 100,000. You can see the mayor's proposed was 606,244,052, and that goes to 606,344,052. And the same thing on the expenditure side, which evens it out. The expenditure side also increases by 100,000. So that's basically the changes on the technical amendment for general fund. Again, on information only for special funds, I want to make a note that for special funds, these are information only. It does not change any previous Board of Alder approved allocations, any ordinance amendments that the Board of Alder will be approving as part of this budget. What we wanted to do was sort of show that we, in the Board of Alder approved budget, you will see these particular items added or deleted. So line 25, we talked about during the mayor's presentation of we accidentally overrode some information in that section of the budget. Lines 26 and 27 go together as there was an error in the title and the salary and the range and step. But again, it doesn't change any special fund appropriation. Line 28 was an addition for our engineering department, which is going to manage all the capital projects. for engineering and economic development. But again, that does not change any capital appropriation in the ordinance that you have before you. That was already included in our numbers, but not included in the printing of the book. And basically the same thing for the administrative assistant in finance, in the special fund section of finance. So that is basically the city's technical amendment. Again, the Word document that you have has a lot of the explanations that I just mentioned. So Vice Chair Marchand and Chair Hamilton, I will be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gormini. We'll start. Alderman Marchand, do you have any questions for Mr. Gormini?
Just a couple, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
I want to first thank him for that presentation and just remind myself and colleagues that the special fund portion of that presentation was really just for our information. We do in our printed budget book every year have a whole section on special funds. And of course, we approve such special funds one grant application at a time through a different process. So I appreciate his giving us the courtesy of showing us the corrections that will be in the book, in the final book versus the draft book that we've been looking at. But in regards to the general fund items that will require an amendment once we begin deliberating. In regards to the position changes, I just want to verify that the amounts are in compliance with the applicable collective bargaining agreements. And I want to, I think there are a few part-time positions, some have benefits and some don't. So if you could just clarify that for us, that would be helpful. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Nope, that's a great question, Vice Chair Marchand. So the full-time positions are within all the bargaining unit contract standards. So again, that's kind of why the changes are made, or certain positions were hired higher than proposed in the budget, because there are certain bargaining unit contract language that says, for example, if you're promoted, you have to get a certain type of salary, or whatever the case is. So those are all within the bargaining unit contract standards. The only part-time positions in the city that are allowed benefits, and again, this was the origin of, I'm not sure, between the 884 union and the city a while ago, are the part-time enforcement officers. Those, excuse me, when those individuals are hired, they do have the option of taking medical benefits. My experience in looking at that is a lot of them, some of them don't, because it is a part-time position, only working 19 hours. But those are the only, one of the only part-time positions I know of that we actually offer benefits for. So those other 3 part-time positions in finance, those are not benefit eligible positions.
Thank you, Mr. Gormany. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Pardon me. Alders Ernie Santiago, any questions from Mr. Gormany on his technical amendment?
Not this time, Madam Chair. I got no questions.
Alder DeCola?
No questions at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, Alder Morrison?
No questions at this time, Madam Chair.
Alder Walker Myers?
No questions at this time, Madam Chair.
Alder Festa?
No questions, Madam Chair.
Okay, Alder Furlow?
No questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
All right, and Alder Hurd hasn't joined us yet, right? Alder Decker, any questions from Mr. Gormany?
No questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. Gormany.
All right, thank you, Chair Hamilton, Vice Chair Marchand, and all the
Madam
committee.
Chair,
Yes? Oh,
Evelyn Rodriguez.
Evelyn Rodriguez, I apologize. Did
No
I jump over your
questions.
name? I do apologize. I jumped over your name. Forgive me.
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Okay, as I said before, thank you, Mr. Gormany.
All right,
And
thank you,
now,
everyone.
yes, and now we will begin. Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, this is Alder Adam Marchand.
Yes.
I move items 10, 11, 12, and 13, the special service district items.
Second,
Discussion on the special service district items.
Madam Chair, this is Alder Adam Marchand. I just want to recommend to colleagues that we approve these items. As a reminder, colleagues may recall that these organizations have boards made up of members, and they vote to approve the special tax assessments that are applied to the member businesses and properties, and that those budgets are used to support the staff and activities of those districts, which range from modest to quite large and complicated. I just note for the record that we heard updates from all those groups that sound like they had been resourceful and resilient in dealing with difficult times, both the pandemic and some changes such as the passing of Brian McGrath. But their presentations were solid, and I think they're in good shape for us to approve them. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Any other discussion on the special services district? Approving them? Hearing none. Alder Marchand, are you in favor?
Yes.
Alder Santiago,
yes.
Alder DeCola,
Yes.
Alder Morrison,
Yes.
Alder Walker Myers,
Yes.
Alder Festa,
Yes.
Alder Furlow,
Yes.
Alder Evelyn Rodriguez,
Yes.
and Alder Charles Decker.
Yes.
Motion carries. The special services districts move forward favorably.
Madam Chair, this is Alder Adam Marchand.
Go ahead, Alder Marchand.
I move items 6, 7, 8, and 9, the enterprise funds.
Is there a second?
Second,
Discussion on the enterprise funds, please.
Madam Chair, this is Alder Adam Marchand.
Alder Marchand, go ahead.
Thank you. These items were presented to us during our workshops. We had questions about the various enterprises that these funds support. I would just note that a future topic of discussion, I would think, would be the future plans for the East Rock Tower, which seems to be not as economically viable as it once was. But I think at this point, we should go ahead and approve that budget. I would also note that we should pay close attention to future use of the Walker Rink, which just went through an extensive renovation and has a new partnership with with Albertus Magnus, sorry. So we learned good things in the process, the budget process, and I'm recommending approval of these items. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Alder Marchand, are you in favor of approval?
Yes.
Alder Ernie Santiago,
Yes.
Alder DeCola,
yes.
Alder Morrison,
Yes.
Alder Walker Myers,
Yes.
Alder Festa,
Yes.
Alder Furlow,
Yes.
Alder Rodriguez, Alder Evelyn. Are you in favor, Alder Evelyn Rodriguez?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Alder Decker not here. I mean, Alder Hurt not here. Alder Decker.
Yes.
Thank you. The special services district move forward favorably. Now we'll,
Madam
do I
Chair,
have a motion? Yes,
this is
Alder
Alder Adam Marchand.
go right ahead.
I move items 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, appropriating ordinances 1 through 4, and the item related to permits, licenses, and fees.
Is there a second?
Second,
These items have been moved and seconded.
Madam Chair,
Go right ahead, Alder Marchand, discussion.
if it would please the committee, I would just like to show a document that helps to remind us exactly what I'm moving at this moment.
Go right ahead, sir.
Okay, Madam Chair, let me just pull it up.
Mhm.
There we go. I hope everybody can see this.
Can we all see Alder Marchand's
People
document?
Nodding their heads. Thank you for
Okay.
visibly nodding your heads. That's helpful.
They proceed.
Okay. So I want to remind people, as Madam Chair said at the conclusion of our meeting Monday, we are moving forward together version of the budget. It has a general fund total of $244,052. Of course, that's before any technical amendment. The capital projects total is 60 million. That's a biennial capital projects budget. And a special funds total of $29,284,464. Obviously, the special funds total is just informational. That's what we're moving today and deliberating upon. Some key features of this version of the budget that we're moving is that the mill rate remains unchanged at 43.88 mils. The major cuts discussed in the other version are not in this version. So members of the public mentioned the Mitchell Library, for example. The version of the budget that we're moving tonight continues funding for that organization and for the East Shore Senior Center and for the Firehouse on Whitney Avenue. So this version of the budget that we're moving tonight does not make those cuts or any of the other cuts we heard described during the departmental workshops attributed to that other budget. And excuse me, notably, this version of the budget assumes additional revenue from the state and or Yale in the amount of $53 million beyond the status quo. And that, Madam Chair, is what we are moving tonight.
Excellent. Thank you, Alder Marchand, for that clarification, so we know what we're working with. And with that, do I have a motion?
Madam Chair.
Go right ahead, Alder
I
Marchand.
Thank you. I move the changes in the technical amendment just described by Mr. Gormany.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. Discussion, please, Alder Marchand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just note for the record that the amendment is properly formatted. It has a net zero impact on the budget. It raises revenues by $100,000 and it raises expenditures by $100,000. So it leaves our general fund budget in balance. I think Mr. Gormany's presentation speaks for itself, and I encourage colleagues to vote favorably on this amendment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other discussion on the amendments, the technical amendment proposed by Mr. Gormany and moved by Alder Marchand? Any other discussion? Okay. Alder Marchand, are you in favor?
Yes.
Alder Ernie Santiago,
Yes.
Alder DeCola,
Yes.
Alder Morrison,
Yes.
Alder Taisha Walker Myers. Alder Walker Myers? Ma'am, you're on mute.
Yes.
Thank you. Alder Festa,
Yes.
Alder Furlow,
Yes.
Alder Rodriguez,
Yes.
and Alder Decker.
Yes.
Thank you. The technical amendments. Oops, I'm sorry, I just muted myself. Technical amendments are moved favorably. Is there another motion on the table? Alder Marchand.
Yes, Madam Chair, I move an additional amendment to the budget.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion on your amendment, sir.
Yes, Madam Chair, if it pleases you, I will share a document that explains the pieces, the moving parts in this amendment.
Go right ahead, please.
I hope everybody can see this. It may look familiar. It's the same document, but it's the next page. So let me just say, first of all, excuse me, what the amendment does not do. It makes no changes to the capital or special funds budgets. In the general fund budget, it makes no changes to revenue assumptions, right? So it keeps in place the assumption that there's 53 million additional dollars coming from the state and or Yale, and that's important. It does make changes to expenditures, which we'll go through below. Not very many. As part of the mayor's proposed budget, the Board of Ed would receive $3 million above its budget from last year. This amendment would reduce that increase by $1.5 million. In other words, the budget would be increased $1.5 million from the budget amount in the current fiscal year. And this was quite a bit of discussion has happened around this. I think others may want to speak to it as well, but there's, from my part, I'll just say that I was impressed with the hard work of Dr. Tracy's administration, especially CFO Penn, in dealing with a fiscal house that needed to be brought further into order. I think tremendous progress has been made in that regard. But obviously our committee is calling on our colleagues across town to sharpen their pencils further, roll up their sleeves more, and to work really hard to the figure that we're providing. We felt that I felt at least that it made sense to provide some increase because there are, of course, contractual obligations that must be met to the staff. But we're calling on our partners across town in the Board of Ed to work really hard. And I recognize that they've worked hard already, but there's more hard work to be done. So that produces a savings of $1.5 million by reducing the $3 million increase to a $1.5 million increase. And so this amendment makes the following proposal for how to redeploy those dollars. First and foremost, we think the bulk of those savings ought to be put into the expenditure reserve line. Now, colleagues will remember that last year in our budget process, we were dealing with tremendous uncertainty and we had to make some painful choices. Many and quite a few changes to the mayor's proposed budget, and it yielded some meaningful savings that we used for two purposes. One, to reduce the increase in the mill rate, and two, to create a $4 million expenditure reserve fund that would help the city cope with either increased expenditures or decreased revenue due to the COVID pandemic. In the current budget, the mayor proposed that figure to be $1 million. Our amendment would bring it up to $2 million. I, for one, think that we are looking at a more hopeful situation this May than we were looking at last May. We've been through 12 months of living with a pandemic. There's a vaccine that's out there that many people are getting. And we have more cause for optimism that our economic situation will be positive. But there's still some uncertainty. And this amendment increases that expenditure reserve by $1 million to make it 2 instead of just 1. So what happens with the remaining $500,000? This amendment distributes that $500,000 into 5 funds, each of which reflecting one of the policy priorities of our legislative agenda. And so what will happen is that we will create a new 5 new budget lines, probably in the same part of the budget that the organizational subsidies are located, and create lines that reflect these priorities, these legislative priorities. And then it's our intention that the Board of Alders would have significant authority over those funds and could decide to use them towards projects and work that advance these priorities. A job training outreach fund, community policing forum fund, affordable housing studies, health engagement fund, environmental education fund. We might figure out ways to make the wording a little bit different between now and the second reading, but this is a reflection of the policy goals that we have on our legislative agenda, and we want to have funds available to our body to pursue legislative work, programmatic work within our community to advance these issues. And that, Madam Chair, is a description of our amendment. I encourage colleagues to support it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Excellent. Any other discussion on our amendments from colleagues?
Madam Chair, you just muted yourself.
Oops, my apologies. Alder Walker Myers, did I see your hand? And
Yes,
Alder Festa. All right, go ahead, Alder Walker Myers.
yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just encourage my colleagues to vote for this amendment. I think it's reflective of the core values that we have been talking about in the city. And if you can remember back to that very robust conversation and committee meeting we had around our legislative agenda and the things that people care about, we had well over 150 people from all across the city saying those priorities is important to them. And I think the budget should reflect that. So I ask all my colleagues to vote in favor. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Walker Myers. Alder Festa, your hand I also saw.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just need some clarification on the expenditure reserve. Is this the reserve that the federal government is helping us fund as well? So do we need to put in 1.5 million if the feds are giving us? I'm sorry, 1 million if the feds are giving us money.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to answer that.
Go right ahead, Alder Marchand.
No, it's not the same thing, according to my understanding, and we'll hear more about this next week at our public hearing on the American Rescue Funds. Those funds, what my understanding of what those funds are available for are in the first-hand reimbursable expenses that we've already incurred and lost revenues directly related to the pandemic that we've already lost. And so that would be, for example, parking meter revenue was seriously impacted by the pandemic, right? So there are certain expenditures or lost revenues that we've already experienced in the current fiscal year that the American Relief Funds could help reimburse us for or make up for. That's not next year's fiscal budget, that's this year's budget. And it's welcome relief because that will help us have a more positive fund balance for the end of this fiscal year. And then secondly, going forward, these funds are available for programmatic investments, special projects that we might embark upon. And the mayor has proposed some that we'll talk about next week, but they're not really available for general fund unconditional use. And so the reserve fund is totally flexible. We can use it for whatever, as long as we have an appropriately submitted and voted on transfer. And so, so no, they're not the same thing. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Alder Festa, any other questions?
Yes, so thank you, Alder Marchand, for that clarification. I just want, and this might be just a friendly amendment, but the community policing forum funds, can we add not only community policing, but traffic safety to that, since that is also one of the priorities? So
Alderman
basically,
I would,
like to add a friendly amendment to include traffic safety in that.
I'm willing to think about it. I think if we were to make it, well, let me just, if it's all right with you, Madam Chair, let me just give you a thought of a sense of what I was thinking.
Okay, go ahead.
And of course, we'll have time between now and the second reading to further develop this if we wish. But I know that one thing that we heard loud and clear from the acting chief is that we need to have a discussion within our community about what our community wants to see from its police force, what kind of services, what kind of relationship. And that is an important baseline conversation to have before we can get to the very important topic of how many cops do we need and how many ships and how should they be deployed. And so thinking about that, I imagined that we would need to have a robust conversation. Perhaps we need polls, perhaps we need facilitators, perhaps we need focus groups, in addition to community meetings that are easily enough arranged and could be done at a low cost. And so I wanted to create a pot of money that could help support those efforts, because I believe that those conversations about what kind of police force we want to have in our community is a very serious one and might take some doing. It might need some resources in terms of supporting printing or messaging or other facilitation services. So having said that, we might not need all of that money for those purposes and might want to use some of those funds for others. So if we were to change this, I think it'd be smarter to change it to make the wording more general rather than longer with more things added. So instead of having community policing and traffic safety and whatever else, we could just have public safety engagement fund. That's a more general title that can encompass more kinds of conversations. And so I'd be interested to hear other colleagues' thoughts on that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Alder Fester?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Although many conversations have been had along with the community in regard to traffic safety, so perhaps something to give thought to is making another line item for specifically that, or changing the title or the item wording to one that Alder Marchand has suggested. So just my thoughts, because the traffic safety did come up quite a bit. We have large groups out there working on some even state statutes, et cetera, and I think it's important to include that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All righty. Any other discussion? Alder Morrison, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just stand in support of this amended budget. I am so elated to see that we have the opportunity to really put some real cash towards our legislative agenda. When we have constituents come out and express their concerns and the things that they want to see in our community, a lot of times during budget season, it's kind of hard because we have all these fixed costs. But because we are now able to move some monies around and really be able to have those discussions about job training, things of that sort, studies of, community forums, policing forums, things of that sort will really, really have an impact on the city and its overall growth and development. So I ask my colleagues to please support this amendment. We finally are going to be able to do some other things other than status quo. And I thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Morrison. Any other discussion?
Madam Chair, Alder Decker, Alder Furlow have their hands up, and then for a second time, Alder Walker Myers and Alder.
Okay. Who was first? Alder Decker or Furlow?
Alder Decker was first, and Alder Furlow was next.
Okay, before we do that, good evening, Alder Clyburn. Thank you for joining us, and Alder Antunes. Welcome. Alder Decker, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also urge colleagues to support these proposed amendments. I think that they do an important job of supporting this board's legislative agenda that we've heard so much about. In particular, I think many of us on the board, all of us on the board have been saying all along that affordable housing is, something that obviously is a priority for the city, but also requires actual resources and not just, good ideas. Good ideas only get us so far. So I think that it's important that we, signal our seriousness to material commitments to this solving this crisis as well. In particular, I also support keeping the revenue assumptions for the Forward Together budget. We've been calling loud and clear that our partners need to, step up and do their part, and I think this is where we hold the line on that. So I am very strongly in support of both components of this, I would say. And also, as to Alder Festa's point, which I agree with the Alder that traffic is something that we have heard about. So I'd be interested in thinking more about if there's a way to to signal that as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Decker. Alder Furlow, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm also in support of this item as amended. As has already been said, and I'll be brief, that we've heard our residents from all over the city, and this item as amended really puts everything into a capsule and delivers completely everything that our residents, our constituents have been pushing and asking for. And I'm really proud to be able to be on this committee to represent them in this way and push this item forward. And so I ask that our colleagues support this item exactly as amended. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Alder Evelyn Rodriguez, did you have a comment?
No, thank you.
All righty.
I am in agreement with everything that my colleagues are saying. I think that in compliance with the legislative agenda of the Board of Alders, meeting the needs of our community and residents is extremely significant, and that this amendment completely covers even the concern regarding safety and traffic that our colleague Festa is sharing and alluding to. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, we're not able to hear you at the moment.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, Madam Chair.
All righty. Thank you, everyone. Are there any other discussion on the amendment presented?
Madam Chair, I see that Alders Decker and Festa have their hands raised. Are those hands that have not been put down, or do you wish to comment? Alder Festa's hand is still raised, Madam Chair.
Okay, go ahead, Alder Festa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to voice a concern more than anything. We heard from our state delegation that, in appropriations, we will more than likely, well, it was voted out of appropriations committee that the state will give us the $49 million. And we still have $4 million to make up out of that. And we're counting on, Yale University to fund us for that. I don't like assumptions. I feel more comfortable with the state. The state delegation, I think, has worked really hard to provide us with not only passing that in their committee, but also other funding that has come to the city in so many ways. So, I thank them immensely for all the hard work that they've done. My concern, though, is making up the $4 million difference in, what we're counting on for Yale. Now, does Yale need to do their part in this city? Absolutely. No doubt about it. Growing up in this city to, in what was considered a middle class neighborhood is no longer that. due to the taxes that, we have to pay. So the families in this city as a whole are now questioning whether they can afford to buy a house, educate their kids, for college, since that expense is so high, just even live a decent life in this city. And that has become incredibly complicated due to Yale having over 50% of exempt property. Now, growing up, like many of you on this board did in this city, we didn't know that Yale was going to suck up all this land in our city and then eventually jack up our taxes. If we had a crystal ball, we'd all be millionaires by now. So I think it's really, really, really unfair that the residents of this city have to suffer through that and have to pay these high taxes while still being able to turn on the lights in their home. And if you recall, there was actually a testifier who was in the dark and was a little upset with us when we asked her to turn on the lights because we were increasing her lighting bill. But regardless of that, do I trust Yale? I don't trust a lot of things, particularly when it deals with the wallet. So my concern is that $4 million. Is Yale going to give it to us or not? We put in the budget last year, I believe, $2.5 million that we were confident Yale would give us, and they didn't. And that is very upsetting to me. And I'm sorry, I probably sound passionate, but I want to continue living in this city. I want to continue to be able to raise my children in this city, like so many families want to in this city. So the point to this is we still have that $4 million that needs to be made up. And I do have, I found some money here and there to try and make up for it, which again, is not letting Yale get away with this. It's just a matter of us being fiscally responsible as a board, as the finance committee, to make sure.
Yes.
I'm going to interrupt my colleague to call a point of order, not because I don't want to hear what she has to say, because I think what she has to say is really compelling. I think she's actually jumped ahead to the debate of my item as amended and not the actual amendment, because I think you might be gearing yourself up to make further amendments, which you really need to do after we vote on this one. So I'm dying to hear what you have to say, Alder Festa, but what do you think about this amendment?
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you. Sometimes my passion takes over and, I want to make sure I don't miss anything, and then we'll
be sure to call on you.
All right.
Thank you, Alder Marchand. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All righty. Any other discussion on the amendment? All righty. So, Alder Marchand, you're in favor of your amendment, yes?
Yes.
Alder Santiago, are you in favor of Alder Marchand's amendment?
Yes.
Alder DeCola, are you in favor of Alder Marchand's amendment?
Yes.
Alder Morrison?
Yes.
Alder Walker Myers?
Yes.
Alder Festa?
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Alder Richard Furlow?
Yes.
Alder Evelyn Rodriguez?
Yes.
And Alder Charles Decker?
Yes.
Okay. Alder Marchand? Your
Madam
item.
Chair, I have no further amendments at this time.
Are there any other amendments this evening? Alder Festa, go right ahead.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. As I was saying earlier, and I won't go through that whole spiel again, I promise you all. I do.
Alder Festa, this is Alder Adam Marchand.
Oh, it still
You should
does.
start by saying I move an amendment, get it seconded, and then we can ask you to talk about it.
Okay, I do have an amendment that I'd like to present.
Second.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Madam Chair, did you want to?
Go ahead. Let's
Okay.
hear your amendment, ma'am.
Thank you. It is risky, in my opinion, to assume we'll receive the $4 million in additional funds from Yale University assumed in the Forward Together budget. Therefore, I propose removing that revenue from the budget and making the following reductions in spending. First is to remove 500,000 from SURF. Sorry. And remove 500,000 from the P&F, which is a total of $1 million, and apply that $1 million towards the $4 million budget gap. I also propose removing $3 million from the Board of Education and apply it towards the $4 million budget gap, which the budget gap is actually 4.1 million, but we could find that other 100. If Yale does indeed come forward and provide the funding necessary that we need in the city and do the right thing, then none of those will need to be removed. We can move forward with, funding our SURF and funding our PNF, funding the Board of Ed, and not have to worry again about the residents that matter in this city. Do I want to do that to even our Board of Ed? Absolutely not. I don't. I have 3 kids in the system. Most of us either had kids go through the system. The residents of this city count on our Board of Ed to educate our children. But if I'm going to do it any other year, this is the year to do it with, some flexibility that they may have with some of the ESSER funding. So those are my propositions. Again, you heard my spiel about Yale. They have a responsibility to the residents of this city. And that responsibility lies in their—
Madam Chair, are we in discussion now, or are we just moving an amendment?
Oh, I'm sorry. I will, that is my amendment. I'm sorry. Thank you, Alder. I get passionate.
So, is there a second to Alder Fester's amendment?
Madam Chair, the amendment has been made and seconded. Alder Festa was describing it, and she was giving a description mixed with her passionate defense of it.
Okay.
And so through you, Madam Chair, I would ask Alder Festa if she would once again go slowly through the basic facts of her amendment so that we could be sure we all understand it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you. So it is to remove 500,000 from SURF, which is part of the pension and FICA contributions, remove $500,000 from the PNF, which is also part of the pension and FICA contributions, which will give us a total savings of $1 million. Place that $1 million towards that $4 million gap. Also remove the $3 million. Actually, you know what? I'm going to separate. I'm going to first do that one and apply that $1 million towards the $4 million gap.
So point of order, Madam Chair, what you would propose then, Alder Festa, is to reduce the overall size of the budget by $1 million, which would have the result of reducing what you see as a funding gap between what the Appropriations Committee has allocated and the $53 million goal that's in the Moving Forward Together budget.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
But then a second amendment to remove the $3 million from the Board of Ed and apply that. Yeah.
You should talk about one amendment at a time.
One at a time, Alder Festa.
So we can keep it straight. Thank you.
So the first one would be the 500,000 from SURF and 500,000 from PNF.
Okay. So that was moved and seconded.
Madam Chair, I see that Alder Decker's hand is up.
Go ahead, Alder Decker.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Alder Festa. I completely agree with your passion and your story, and the story that I know you're hearing every day from your constituents about the consequences of the situation with Yale. The reason why I don't agree with removing that revenue assumption is I think about the signal that this board is sending, and I think that there's a very different signal to the university between we expect you to step up and pay your fair share, and like the additional revenue would be nice to have. I think if we're saying we're not assuming it, but we'll take it if you give it, then it would be nice to have assumption. Whereas I think this is a moment for us to send a strong, clear signal that it's what we expect. So again, I completely agree with and respect the spirit behind your amendment and your explanation for why you're doing it. But I do not support the actual amendment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Any other discussion on Alder Festa's amendment to remove?
Madam Chair, you were muted just now.
Madam Chair.
Perhaps as you sort out your audio situation, I can call on Alder Rodriguez as you
Yes.
sort out your audio. Alder Rodriguez.
Thank you, Chair. We expect Yale to do its fair share. The residents are doing their share. Every city department is doing their share. And the fact is that we're all in this together. And it's very important that Yale step up fair share. We must all work together to make the city accomplish what the residents and the peoples in this city need to have accomplished. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alder Evelyn Rodriguez. Did I see other hand?
Madam Chair, my hand is raised.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand. Go ahead, Alder Marchand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm speaking in opposition to this amendment for two reasons. One, I don't think we should lower the pension contributions by $500,000. I think the reduction in the investment return rates assumptions is a prudent move to make. Let's hope we end up being wrong and those investments have better return than assumed. But I think it's abundantly prudent at this time to make sure we're giving robust funding to those pension obligations. And secondly, I agree with Alder Decker about unintentionally sending a message to the university that might give them some cover to make a smaller additional commitment than we need. And so for those reasons, with thanks for Alder Festa's proposal, I'm encouraging colleagues to vote no. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other discussion on Alder Festa's proposed amendment? Alder Festa, you have other comment?
Yes, Madam Chair. While I know it is difficult to take away from these funds, they were increased, which is the only reason why I took from those two items. There was money in there that we were getting, not that it matters, but again, my concern is that, you know, I wish I had the confidence you all have in Yale, and I'm not trying to send them a message that we have the money to cover this, because we don't. We're constantly making sacrifices. And one of those sacrifices is underfunding these pensions. And we're trying to play catch up here. But unfortunately, where else do we find the money? I mean, where else do we look in our budget to find money to cover this $4 million that may not come our way? And I hate to be non-trusting, but I guess I am. And I'm not going to apologize for that just because of past practices. So I hope some of you would consider and understand where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Any other discussion on Alder Festa's amendment? Well, I have something to say, Alder Festa. Let's remember this, you know, in all our public hearings, we've heard from our communities that spoke to the fact that we, the residents of the city, carrying the tax burden for Yale University that's not paying their fair share. So with that, I'm sorry, I'm not in support of your amendment because I also feel like they should step up and do their part and be a better partner in this community. So that's my piece. I can't support you. Are there any other discussion? All right, we will be taking a vote now on Alder Festus amendment. Alder Marchand, are you in favor?
No.
Alder Ernie Santiago, are you in favor?
No.
Alder Nicola?
No.
Alder Morrison?
No.
Alder Walker Myers?
No.
Alder Festa?
Yes.
Alder Richard Furlow?
No.
Alder Evelyn Rodriguez?
No.
Is Alder Hurt with us yet? Alder Charles Decker? Alder Decker?
No.
And Yvette Hamilton? No, I'm not in favor. I'm sorry, your motion has failed. Are there any other motions on the table at this time? Any other motions? Go ahead, Alder Fester. I see your hand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to propose another amendment.
Go right ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I propose to actually remove $1.5 million from the Board of Ed since we've already voted previously in the previous amendment or two amendments ago and $1.5 million of that Board of Ed funding to go towards that $4 million budget gap.
I'm not sure I understand clearly. So are you proposing that another we flat fund the Board of Ed and give them no money?
No, Madam Chair, just remove $1.5 million from the 3 million.
Okay.
To go towards that $4 million gap.
Okay. So Madam Chair, we have a motion to amend. Is there a second? Is there a second to that amendment described by Alder Festa? Madam Chair, I don't believe we have a second.
Okay. So that motion fails. Any other amendments?
Madam Chair, Alder Festa has her hand raised.
Oh, go ahead, Alder Festa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just for a point of clarification, is it okay to introduce increase in fines at this point?
That item has been moved, Alder Festa. So if you want to make an amendment, you may propose it now.
Thank you. I make an amendment to increase the noise fine from $100 to $150.
I will second that motion.
Discussion on Alder Festa's motion to amend the noise fine.
Madam Chair, Alder Festa has her hand raised.
Go ahead, Alder Festa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The purpose of this is, in recent news, the noise ordinance has made an impact on our residents, and we've been reading about it. And I think one way to possibly, quote unquote, educate people is to have them pay from the pocket. And right now, the noise fine is $100. And I think that was established back in the 90s, so it hasn't really been updated. And I'd like to see it go up to at least $150. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other discussion on Alder Festa's amendment to increase the noise fine?
Madam Chair, this is Alder Adam Marchand.
Go ahead, sir.
Alder Festa, have you had, through you, Madam Chair, I would ask Alder Festa if she's had conversations with city staff about their view of what the effect of this fine increase might be.
Thank you, Alder Marchand. I had conversations with just Mr. Gormany.
Okay, any other discussion? Any other discussion? All right. Alder Marchand, are you in favor in increasing this noise fine?
No.
Alder Santiago, are you in favor of increasing the noise fine per Alder Festa's motion?
No, right now.
Alder DeCola?
No.
Alder Morrison?
Uh,
Alder Walker Myers?
No.
Alder Festa?
Yes.
Alder Furlow?
No.
Alder Evelyn Rodriguez?
No, not at this time.
Alder Decker? Alder Charles Decker, are you in favor of increasing that noise fine?
No.
Okay. And Alder Hamilton, no, I'm not in favor. Your motion failed, ma'am, sorry. Are there any other motions on the table this evening? Any other motions? Any other motions this evening to be entertained in this budget?
Madam Chair, if there are no other motions, I would just like to make a statement on the item as amended.
Hearing no other motions, go right ahead, sir. Make your statement.
First and foremost, I want to thank you, Madam Chair, for your able stewardship and leadership of the committee. I want to thank members of this committee for their diligence, their hard work, and their endurance. I think we have a strong budget here, and I look forward to having discussions with colleagues beyond the Finance Committee as we head into our special meeting on the 26th. And I encourage colleagues to support the item as amended, the items as amended. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Any other thoughts or comments? So at this point, do we take a vote now on everything? All righty. So all in favor of the amendments brought forth this evening, Alder Marchand?
Madam Chair, I think it would be good to say all in favor of the items as amended this evening.
All in favor of the items as amended this evening. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Alder Ernie Santiago,
yes.
Alder DeCola,
Yes.
Alder Morrison,
Yes.
Alder Walker Myers,
Yes.
Alder Festa,
No.
Alder Richard Furlow,
Yes.
Alder Evelyn Rodriguez,
Yes.
Alder Charles Decker,
Yes.
Yvette Hamilton, yes. So the yeses have it. The item pass as amended. Items this evening.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Alder Marshall.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Discussion on adjourning. Alder Marchand.
Yes.
Alder Ernie Santiago.
Of course.
Alder DeCola.
Yes.
Alder Jeanette Morrison,
Yes.
Alder Walker Myers,
Yes.
Alder Festa,
Yes.
Alder Furlow,
Yes.
Alder Evelyn Rodriguez,
Yes.
Alder Charles Decker.
Yes.
Let me just say thank you, everyone, for your hard work and your efforts. We are grateful. Our city thanks you for your all the committee members, as well as all the colleagues and the public that have joined us throughout this process. Have a wonderful night. We are adjourned.
Good night, people. Be safe.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Good night.